Hello, purveyors of the strange. Tonight, I'm going to review the final entry in Hammer's Dracula series, with starred Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, and that is Satanic Rites of Dracula, also sometimes known as Count Dracula and His Vampire Bride, which was its U.S. title. It's an interesting movie. It follows the storyline, pretty much, of Dracula AD 1972, and that there are several similar characters, including Lorimer Van Helsing, played by Peter Cushing. Jessica Van Helsing is now played by Joanna Lumley, with her hair dyed red, which doesn't look entirely convincing, but anyway, the previous actress, Stephanie Beacham, who played Jessica Van Helsing in Dracula AD 1972, is a natural redhead. So they wanted to. Apparently, she was not available for to do the role, or wasn't interested. I'm not sure. I think she was getting a fair amount of work at that time. It also stars Michael Coles as Inspector Murray, William Frawley as his assistant, Freddie Jones as a kind of a manic professor, biologist, and Richard Vernon. Was written by Don Houghton and directed by Alan Gibson, who were also the writer-director team on Dracula AD 1972. Valerie Van Bost plays June, the assistant to Inspector Murray, and Barbara Yu Ling plays Shu Lu, who's a Chinese sorceress sort of character, high priestess, Satan kind of character. And there are three vampire girls played by Maggie Fitzgerald, Pauline Pert, and Fanula El Shannon. And also Mia Martin plays a girl who is sacrificed on a satanic altar, and then she comes back to life somehow miraculously. The wound is healed, and she's fine. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. I'm not going to go through the whole entire plot. Basically, what it is this crazy scientist had been working on a new version of the Black Plague, Bacillus Pestus, only much more virulent, and it's like 100 times more contagious, and it's spread by touch and can kill a lot more people very quickly than the Black Plague could. And so he says some interesting things. He's obviously gone quite mad, and when Van Helsing goes to interview him, he's saying things like the Supreme Being is the devil, and he has to learn the beauty of obscenity. He says, Julian, what's the matter with you? And he won't really answer. He's being crazy. He says, I have to get it done by the 28th. Only something has to be done by September 28th, and that is this new plague. As Van Helsing is continuing to question him, he pulls out a gun. Professor Keeley is his name, and Julian Keeley. And that's the Freddie Jones character. And he pulls out a gun, shoots Van Helsing, but he only wounds him in the shoulder. When he wakes back up out of his faint, all the stuff's gone. The bacillus is gone. The professor has hanged himself from the ceiling. And so now he has to, Van Helsing has to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, at this secret agency, they have discovered that there's a house called Pelham House where satanic rituals are apparently taking place. And because there's an agent of theirs who's been tortured and he's escaped, and he tells them he's got photographs of the people who went in, but he doesn't know who they are. And he says there are 5 photographs, and he has this watch that can take photographs. And he dies, and they develop the film, figure out that it's Dr. Keeley, Professor Keeley, plus 3 of these characters, Richard Matthews as John Porter, M.D., up-and-coming member of Parliament, MP, I should say. Patrick Barr as Lord Carradine, a member of the upper crust, and Lockwood West as Colonel Sir Arthur Freeborn, a military man. And they all belong to this secret organization. He says that he saw a satanic ritual on an altar where this girl, Mia Martin, was... first they killed a cockerel and dripped blood all over her, and then the 4 members dipped their fingers into her blood and painted inverted crosses on their foreheads in her blood, in the cockerel's blood, I should say. And then she herself is sacrificed by Chu Ling, who stabs her through the heart with a knife, and then pulls it out, and the wound miraculously, apparently through the power of Satan, heals and is completely healed. And then she wakes up, she's fine, which was kind of strange, but that's that part of the movie. And then the agent dies, and they have to figure out who these people are that do that. Valerie Van Oost as June, the secretary, leaves. She is followed by some of these thugs who've been following these people who wear sheepskin vests, and they drive motorcycles, and they corner her, and then she's taken off to Pelham House. Inspector Murray, because he knows or suspects there's something supernatural going on, goes to visit Van Helsing, Lorimer Van Helsing, who had met in Dracula AD 1972. He'd also met Jessica, and they kind of discuss things and what's going on. And Van Helsing at first doesn't really think much, but then he thinks, this sounds like maybe it's the work of Count Dracula, and I killed him 2 years ago in the churchyard at St. Barthol's, but it's possible that he can come back. He can be resurrected through a disciple, and maybe this. He says, well, what about this Chinese woman? He said, that's a good possibility. So let's go visit them. They go to Pelham House, and Chu Ling comes out and says, oh, there's nothing to this. There's no occult activity is taking place here. This is just an old house, and I'm the caretaker, and he doesn't really believe them. And so Inspector Murray waits till this woman goes away, and then he sneaks into the basement and finds that there are a bunch of vampires chained up in there, and they also have June, and for Freddie, Richard Verdon character goes to rescue her, and Jessica just screams, no, don't do it, she's a vampire. And June starts to try to bite this guy, and he takes his fingers and makes a crucifix, and then he grabs Michael Coles, the inspector, grabs a piece of a crate that was in the basement, because it's a wine cellar that they're down in, and stabs June through the heart and kills her. And then he escapes, and the other vampires, they're apparently chained up there, which doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense for the plot. I don't know why they'd want to keep vampires chained up in a basement when they could roam free at night and rain havoc. But apparently that's not what the person who's running this place wants. They're kind of surprised. They run out. They basically barely escape because these thugs are after them, and they have guns. They're shooting at them and trying to kill them, and they just basically make it out. Then they're trying to figure out what's going on, and Van Helsing posits the idea that maybe Count Dracula is behind this, and he asks who owns this company that these people work for. They work for a company called the D.D. Denham Group of Companies, and nobody ever sees D.D. Denham, the CEO, and he stays in the building all the time, and nobody knows his face. He won't allow his photograph to be taken, and Van Helsing starts to twig it's Dracula, and he decides he's going to go meet Dracula. And first he has explained previously that one of the ways to kill a vampire is with silver. But again, I think people get confused. They say, that's only for a werewolf. Well, that's not entirely true. The idea that silver was an anathema to creatures of dark magic goes back a long way, and it doesn't really happen to pertain only to the killing of a werewolf, which you can kill with. So you can allegedly kill a vampire with a silver bullet as well. And Van Helsing, or at least wound, Van Helsing makes a silver bullet from a melted down crucifix, and you see him pour it into a bullet mold and knock off the excess and cool it down, and now he's got a bullet. But I noticed something, and this is a technical glitch. There's no powder to fire the bullet from. So he just loads the bullet into a Derringer. Well, how's it going to fire? There's no powder. It's not an actual cartridge, it's just the bullet. So that's a technical mistake that the crew made. But it doesn't matter much. He decides he's going to go confront Denham at his building, which is built over the ruins of St. Barthol's Church. And that's another clue that this is really Dracula. He goes and he meets the receptionist and says, no, nobody sees Mr. Denham. And then the telephone rings on his desk. He's got a closed-circuit TV camera that's filming him. He says, oh, Mr. Denham says you're to go up to his apartment and just go into the elevator and press the red button. Take you right there. So he does that, and he confronts Dracula. He places a crucifix. He knocks over a pile of books and sneaks a crucifix under the pile of books. And as Denham's shining this like bright light in his face, so he like he's under the third degree, so he can't see his face, but he hears his voice, and I'm pretty sure he knows from the beginning that this is really Count Dracula, and he asks him a question or something, and he has to touch the pile of books at some point, and his hand recalls. He says, "Ha! I knew it was you, Count Dracula." And he says, you're a thorn in my side. And he says, you're the one who wanted to create the plague, aren't you? And he says it's only a deterrent. But the truth is, and Van Helsing had said this to Inspector Murray, that he thinks that Dracula wants to die. And as long as there are human souls on Earth, basically, he can't die. As long as there's human blood for him to feed on. He creates a plague that kills everybody, completely wipes out humanity. Then Dracula can finally die, which is what he really wants. He is so evil that he's willing to take, an entire planet with him, just to give him the one thing he cannot have, which is death. And Van Helsing confronts Dracula with this, and he basically confesses. And he pulls out his Derringer, and he says, you're a fool. Bullets can't hurt me. He says, it's a silver bullet, Count Dracula, but before he can fire it, his henchmen have seen this all on closed-circuit TV, and they close in and they arrest him. That's the MP and the Lord Carradine and Sir Arthur Treeworm, and they grab him, and now they've got him. It turns out that they've meanwhile snipers have been pursuing Inspector Murray and Jessica Van Helsing through the estate around Pelham House, and they're basically they get to the car where his friend was, who they shot. A sniper killed him. They've got these Mauser rifles with silencers on them. I don't know how accurate that is, but it was an actual rifle. Basically, they get to the car, but it's too late because they're already the thugs are already in the car, and they knock out Inspector Murray, and they capture Jessica. Inspector Murray wakes up, and he's in the wine cellar with Chu Ling, and she starts to try to seduce him, and you see that she's got some sort of hypnotic powers. And as he's starting to kiss her, of course, she reveals her vampire teeth. He takes basically a mallet used to open wine caskets, and uses it as a stake, stabs her through the heart with it. It takes her quite a while to die, but he manages to kill her. The other vampires are starting to come after him now, the ones we saw in the previous scene. He runs up the stairs and realizes that he's got a way out. There's a fire sprinkler, and vampires can't stand running water because of its purity. So he opens the fire sprinkler, and that gets rid of the rest of the vampires in the basement wine cellar. Then he goes up to the ritual room where Jessica has been sort of entranced by Count Dracula. She's lying on the altar where we saw Mia Martin sacrificed earlier, and because he has captured Van Helsing, he drags Van Helsing. His disciples drag him into the room and says, tells them what the plan is, and Dracula basically betrays the. He told them that it was just the plague was just a deterrent. He says, no, you're going to be my four carriers. You're going to take this plague to the four corners of the earth and spread it, so humanity will be wiped out from my private apocalypse, he calls it. And then upstairs, Murray has gone into the security room, and one of the guards attacks him. They start a big fight. He's got a metal bar and is trying to hit him with it, and instead Murray maneuvers him so that the metal bar touches this piece of electrical equipment and electrocutes the thug, and then the room catches fire, the whole house catches fire. Dracula compels one of his disciples, who has been arguing with him, to break the vial in his hand which contains the plague, and he gets the plague and starts getting these horrible symptoms, the bugos all over his body that happened really with that's why they called it the Bubonic Plague. and starts screaming and tries to touch the other members, but they dodge away. And Murray comes down, and Van Helsing has him rescue Jessica from the altar, even though she's still knocked out and hypnotized by Dracula. And he and Dracula have a battle, and Dracula's chasing him through the yard, and then he realizes that some of the bushes around Pelham House are hawthorn bushes. Hawthorn is the bush that was used to make Christ's crown of thorns, so it's, again, lethal to vampires, or they can't cross it. He calls Count Dracula to come to him. The only way to get to him is to walk through this hawthorn bush. He does, and he starts screaming, and his hands start bleeding, and Van Helsing uses this opportunity. He takes a stake from a fence that's nearby and rips it out and stakes Dracula through the heart. And you see him, this is a pretty good special effect. You see his skeleton basically turn to dust slowly, and the only thing left at the end is his signet ring, which Van Helsing picks up, and the last thing is he blows the dust off of it. I don't know why he wanted the signet ring, maybe just as proof that he had actually finally killed Dracula for good. It's the last of the films. It's, again, I didn't tell you everything. There's still some interesting things in there that I didn't mention, but it's interesting. I don't think, people objected to the fact that this one and the previous one, Dracula AD 1972, were set in modern London, not in, like the 17th or 16th or 17th century. And I don't think that really detracts from the story at all. It's just a setting. It's just a background. A couple of things. Joanna Lumley does not look good with red hair. It's obviously, it was either a wig or her hair was dyed, and it looks, too orange. It doesn't look natural. She's naturally a blonde. But they wanted her to make her look like Stephanie Beacham in the previous movie. Stephanie Beacham is a redhead. Was also in one of my favorite UFO episodes, Destruction, and was very good in that. But again, that's another kettle of fish. Very decent movie. I don't think it was a terrible way to end. Apparently, Christopher Lee made some comments that he was sick of playing the role and was rather glad to, have this be the last one. He felt, he'd been typecast for long enough, and obviously he went on to do many, 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 many other things. And was even in a Star Wars movie, and he recorded a heavy metal album, several heavy metal albums, and did a lot of great things in his career, as did Peter Cushing, his lifelong friend. Of course, Joanna Lumley was in many, many things as well, including Absolutely Fabulous as the wonderful Patsy, and really made her mark with that role, and is still going strong. Very good, very worth watching. Again, Satanic Rites of Dracula, a.k.a. Count Dracula and his Vampire Bride, which is what Jessica Van Helsing was supposed to become. He was going to destroy the world with the plague, but he was going to spare her. He tells her, Van Helsing, her body will not be corrupted. So that was kind of an interesting idea. Why would you want to kill everybody but just keep one woman? I guess, I don't know, Dracula had a thing for redheads, kind of like me. Anyway, worth watching.